Good morning, everyone. This is your host, Splash. This is Blue Collar Tribe Podcast, and we are in season 11. 11 seasons. Wow. Sometimes I shock myself that I made it this far. There are some lost seasons out there. I think 5, 6, and 7 have been lost somewhere along the streams, but I have some amazing guests. But before we get to them, let's get to some house cleaning real quick. First and foremost, Blue Collar Tribe Podcast is unedited. It's live. It's raw. Nothing I do is edited. For those that are new followers and new listeners, know that you're going to hear some hiccups. The reason I don't edit my podcast is simply this: you're blue collar badass people, and I'm sure you're listening to this podcast on a job site, having some drill, just trying to hear some great conversations about new tools, how to build your business, and how to brand yourself in this crazy world we call blue collar. So, little backstory. I have Dan and Kurt on the screens with me from Smart Square Tools. How are you, gentlemen, this morning?
Doing great, Splash. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I had the pleasure. I know I've met Dan. I think I met Kurt as well. I met you guys in Las Vegas, Nevada in early 2023 at the National Hardware Show. You guys were in the new tool builds. And it was busy. It was busy.
It was,
to say the least.
I remember seeing you there. Splash.
Yeah, and I remember it was interesting because I'll talk about my experience at the trade show so people understand. When you go to the trade show, if you've never been, one, it's not really for the public, but if you ever get a chance to go to a local trade show, if you're blue collar, I strongly suggest that you go. But when you go to a trade show, you have these new tool inventors that your guys' situation, which I want to get into, maybe it's probably the first part of the story I want to get into. You had tools there at the trade show, but you weren't ready to launch. And I see that a lot. There was a guy next to you, maybe a booth or two down. He had a ceiling fan adapter that it hung and he literally, I think we were there on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. He found out on Monday he was going to attend the show. And he had just created the tool like the week before.
Yes, so, I remember that. Yeah,
you know who I'm talking about. He was in your area, and I'm always amazed, and I take my hat off to you two gentlemen because one, it takes some big cojones to build a tool. I've said that many times in my tool creators that have been guests on my show, like to think about a tool and create it because you're going to get people to talk. Meaning when I say do talk, you're going to get a lot of people that want to talk about your tool. Oh, we don't need a new paintbrush. We don't need a new square. We don't need a new roller, a rope cutter. But in all actuality, we do. There's space for tools. But Kurt and Dan, if you can, give me, see, this is why I love raw and editing. You never know what's going on in the background. Give us a little bit. What is your guys' experience in the blue collar world? How long have you guys been in the trades for?
Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I'll start off. I graduated high school in 1983, and I basically went into the trades right after that. I started remodeling in early '84, and framing full time in about summer of '84. So a year from now will be my 40th year driving nails, and most of that has been part time. I started out obviously full time, and went back to school, became a PE teacher and a math teacher and a science teacher, and I just stepped away from 29 years of doing that. But I've never put the hammer down. I every summer, every weekend, every spring break, Christmas break, fall break, holiday, whatever it is, I've got my bags on and I'm building something. So I've been a licensed contractor along the way as well. So I'm still doing it.
You love it. There's a love.
Yeah.
There is. How was being a PE teacher? I always thought that'd be a fun job, but is it overrated?
No, you know what? I don't know. You can impact young men and women on a different athletic or a different academic venue, so to speak. Out on the field, and ironically, there are kids that will only flourish in public education in that particular setting, if you know what I mean. They won't flourish in the classroom, but out on the field, that's their place. So you try to meet the needs of everybody in your class, of course, but those kids seem to flourish.
That's awesome. And Kurt, how long have you been in business for in the blue collar world?
Yeah, so I'm going to be exposed here. That's not my background necessarily. I actually had to. I've been catching up on a lot of stuff in the last couple of years since we've started this, and learning a lot from Dan.
Nice.
But yeah, my background's more in kind of computers and that sort of thing. So it was a perfect match of Dan has the knowledge, the information. That's why he's on our Instagram page, Smart Square Tools. And that's why he's showing off the stuff. And I'm just helping to promote it and kind of adding the technology to the traditional work. And that's kind of what our tool is too. It is a 100-year-old tool, which has been improved with some kind of new tech. So it kind of fits perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So real quick, for those that don't know, I'm going to ask the obvious question here, and I've always wanted to ask this question. I'm going to get a lot of shit from my followers, and I'm okay with this. Now, mind you, my background is painting. I do own a few squares. I have a funny story about it, but
Okay.
it's a triangle. Why is it called a square? Like, I know why.
Why?
Like, I know that it squares things, but
Yeah.
like, if you sent your kid, Dan, you know this, you're a little old. If you sent your
I do.
kid to the store, said, "Hey, give me a square," and they asked, they would never think about picking that up.
No, they wouldn't, would they?
No.
Geometric shape to the side, of course. You're right. I get that comment from everybody that thinks they're funny. You know what I mean? I say,
Yeah.
hey, take a look at the new square. Well, it's not actually a square; it's actually a triangle. So I hear this all the time, and
Just so
and
you know,
I laugh
meant
all
no,
the time.
I mean no disrespect about it.
I don't take it that way, Splash, either. I don't take it that way. But of course, the term square means at a right angle, right? So that's the purpose of a rafter square, is to mark so that you can cut and frame to a right angle. I would say 95% of all meetings of two pieces of lumber are going to be at a 90-degree angle. So that's the reason for the term square. And you're correct; it's not geometrically the right shape.
No. So
For the
I'll
name.
share a story about a square. So
Okay.
my father. I graduated in 98. My father, so I have to say what year I graduated in, so it sets a timeline of where we were at in the world. My mom and dad were very much either go on a mission or go to school for finance or computers. Those are the two big things. So
Right.
I went and worked in finance, and I was successful. I'm a salesperson. That's like, I'm not going to lie. But fast forward to 2005. I worked all these white collar jobs, got fired from all of them, and I painted my house, started my paint business, didn't know anything about the industry, okay? So my father-in-law, who is, he's a miner, but what he did for work before he retired is like those big cat machines that are underneath the earth.
Yeah.
They would send him out to like New Jersey or wherever the plants were at, and he would take apart certain parts of the machine, leave, come back in 2 weeks, and put it back together. No instruction manual. So they wanted to make
Wow.
sure they were foolproof. So I say that
Yeah.
to say, like, he knows his shit. My father-in-law and I built a home in Mexico. It's actually pretty inexpensive to do. And the very first trip we went down, he's like, "Hey, bring all your tools," because I had started my paint business. So of course I bring everything I bought. We're 2 days in, and the foundation was poured. We were framing the house. And he kept saying, "I forgot my square." I had no idea what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah.
On the third day, he's going through my toolbox, and he's like, "Are you an idiot? This is a square. I've been looking for this for 2 days." I had like 3 of them. I had like the really small one, and then I had a really big. I could be wrong the size. I want to say it's like a 21-inch. It was like a bright orange one from the depot.
Yeah.
And I had them, but the reason I had them is weirdly enough, when I started my business, I did crown molding. Like hanging crown molding, if you've never done it, it's an art form. Weirdly,
It is.
my maths on that. Like it's backwards, and I totally get it. So that's why I had the tool. It just helped me get my corners in of everything. So it's this running joke that I'm special, but then he's like,
okay.
he says, "Hey, get the triangle. Get the triangle."
Get the triangle.
My father-in-law is so old school. He's just like, he still makes fun of me. Like, I think in our house somewhere on the ceiling, he drew a picture of it and said, "Robbie, this is a dot dot dot."
Yeah, yeah.
So you're in an industry, and we'll get into where the creation came from. But you work with, you created a tool that in my mind is like, it's not Captain Obvious if you're not a contractor, that has dealt with it.
Mhm.
But where did the passion come from? Because I mean, the square's been around for years.
100 years. 100 years.
Yeah, hundreds. But like every good
Yeah.
tool, everything can be transformed. But what, like, I know we have some people watching YouTube. If you're listening to this once it releases, if you want to see the video, go over to YouTube, watch it. The Real Splash, you can find it there, and we'll put some clips on the social media side as well. But if you want to see what Dan's going to show in a minute, he's going to show you what his new tool is. But it does some unique things that, one, I don't even know, be honest, Kurt and Dan. I don't even know what it does. So I'm going to give you the floor and the microphone to let everyone kind of get an idea, and then we'll talk about the birth of it.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to
By the
grab
way, you all need one of these because
Go
the
ahead.
colors of these are awesome. I love the color
I
schemes
agree.
that you did.
Thank you. Thanks, Splash. So do we. We've got a fire engine red, and we've got an ocean blue, and we've got bronze, we've got OD green, we've got gold, we've got armored gray. So you kind of want to just a kind of a quick breakdown of the square itself.
Yes, give us a breakdown of what it is.
Splash? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, here's the kind of square that I used for all of my 30 plus years in framing.
I have a
It's
few
a
of those.
typical. Most of mine are broken. This one actually is not, but most of mine snap off on these corners because I space my decking with it.
Oh, okay.
And that, you can only do that so long before something catches and breaks. But this is cast aluminum. It's a great tool. It really is. But it's got a fixed fence, as you can see. Now,
So
a lot of people
when you say a
shoe.
fixed fence, if you're not
Uh-huh.
looking at it, for the audio listeners, a square at the very top of it, one of them looks like a T, so it looks like an actual
Right.
letter T. So that's
Right.
what your fence is called, is that top part of the T, correct?
Correct.
Yes,
That is
okay.
correct. Yes, the T. And other companies use the term shoe. They call it the shoe. We refer to it as the fence. And this guy's got a fixed fence. It doesn't move, and it overlaps both sides. Okay, that it's been working for years. It really has. The only thing with it is when you lay it flat on a table on a surface of some kind, there's a void. And there's a void underneath it right here that you can see. And you have to be very careful how you make that mark in order to mark a 90-degree angle on a flat piece of material. So carpenters have to kind of keep an eye on that. And honestly, it's always one of those things that kind of irritated me. And then along the way, about 11 years ago, the idea of a fence that moves came. Okay, this fence, obviously, I'm sorry, go ahead, Splash.
No, you're good. We're listening.
Okay. So the idea came to me that you could have a square that actually has a fence that is only on one side, but it can be moved to two different positions. It can be moved from what we call right hand to left hand, or it can be moved to a 180-degree position. And this Splash is what's unique about our square. The movement of the fence, but the ability to actually do flat work. So we can, if you can see it, let's see. Okay, so with this Splash, we have the ability to do flat work, and it's the only square like it that you literally can put it in a completely flat position. And a lot of the work that carpenters do is flat work. We don't always work on the edge of material. Most of the time we do, granted, but our fence gives you the opportunity of choosing which side of the fence you want to use. I don't know if I'm being a little bit scattered here or not, if I'm not covering it completely. But
it makes sense.
Okay, it's making sense. Okay, so ours will do everything that that the old cast iron, old fashioned model will do, and ours will do things that no other square will do.
So this leads me to a lot of questions. A lot.
Okay.
Kurt, this may be something that you may have, because you're being the computer guy. When I see, I'm going to be transparent here. When I see new tools, and this is kind of what my niche is, I love working with new tool companies. I love seeing the new tools. And I personally don't do them for the views. I do them because I think that there's space for everybody. But not devil's advocate, but I'm always going to ask the questions that I think, people look at. Like, well, why did you have to make a new one? Why, what changed? And then when you do make a change, so here's mine. I know that you guys have been gracious enough to give me one, and I'm really excited to see it. So thank you so much for that. But when the T, when you move that, so if you're listening and you're not understanding that, when you look at that T moves mathematically, and I'm trying to get this correct. So Kurt, this is where I think you're going to come in, because you're way going to be smarter than me on this. Is it, when it's flat, does it still measure the same, or does the new square that you created have a different line of measurement? So, because for me, when you're measuring, like, I get the concept of wanting it flat. I would prefer a flat one for most any of my cuts anyways. But because it adds another inch, or is that what it added? I don't know. I guess that's what my question is. I don't know how that come into form.
Right. Dan's showing right now on the screen, we have dual numbering, dual numbering. So it accounts for the extra inch when it's in the flat position. So if you have it in what we call the left or right hand position, you can look at one numbering measurement. When it's flat, we have a different number measurement, and we've done our best to change the size of the numbers. We might get to the point where we can actually change the color. We're trying to make this optimally easy for people to see. And that's another thing about this square. So we brought up the fence, which is the obvious thing that people notice, is that it has a pivoting fence. But this is just the beginning. This is just one small part. So first of all, this is a high quality tool, right, out of extruded aluminum, not cast aluminum. So when people have held these in their hands, they realize, like, first of all, this is just an awesome tool to hold. We have some very unique colors. We have unique colors that you can't really find anywhere else. We put a lot of attention to detail on those markings, for example. I've spent many days just working on the markings, studying old squares, trying to make improvements, making it as easy to read as possible. So that's at a base layer. This is just an awesome tool to behold. It's very carefully machined by guys who actually work in the aerospace industry who we met. So it is at a base level very high quality. But to answer your question, before I went off on that promotional tangent, yes, we compensate for that extra inch when it's flat. There's a second line of measurements. There's a second number by the original number that you can look at for your
and they're moved wrong. So if Dan leaves right there, if we're looking, this is us looking at the screen. So go watch this part of the video. You have one, which is we would all know where one is. That's like that 1 inch mark of that.
Right.
But the two. So if we look next to the two, Kurt, if you can. Is the two the second line down where the two starts, or is it the top of the two? Like if you were measuring right now.
Right. So that long line that's touching the one, that's 1 inch if it's in the kind of traditional square position, or
Correct.
if it's in flat position, then that long mark becomes the 2 inch mark.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. All right, perfect. And I appreciate you guys. Like I said, I never want to break anyone's tool down, but as the contractor myself, as I've learned, because a lot of what I know in the contracting space is 1,000% me teaching myself and fucking up a lot. Like that is like,
I hear you.
If you're blue collar, like you have to fuck up. Like I can't tell you how many times I've thought of, and this is a paintbrush. Like your guys' tools way more better than a lot of tools I've ever touched. But like I have thought of a million different ways we can make a paintbrush better. Like I thought of like filling the handle up. I've thought of changing the ferrules. Well, what if we use these kind of bristles? What if I use cotton bristle? Like, I mean, I've gone like 40 feet in the air thinking like of dumb shit to make my job easier. So you clearly thought about it. And now you guys have, and I saved this question specifically for when you guys were on. You have two different versions. Now, before we go into it, I think, Dan, you could make a whole episode because I don't know. I think you have. You're on social media a lot, Dan, which I love seeing your face there. You've seen the memes of people measuring. I wish I brought a tape measure, but like the Milwaukee and DeWalt. Not trying to go against brands, just very open conversation though. When you were just a fucking tape measure, they're off.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird. And so when I was contracting, I made sure my crew only used one brand, Team Red.
Right.
But that's what we use. And like, they'd be like, well, no, I have my own. Like, no. I want to know if we're measuring something, it all needs to be the same. So with yours,
it does.
You have two different versions of it. I know that they may not go in the measuring, but what were the versions? Because on your website, honestly, and Kurt, you can jump in on this. I love your price point. Like, honestly, if I look at a tool, if I spend less than $150, I'm going to buy it. If it's $150 or more, I'm probably going to think a little bit more about it. But your guys' price point for your product, and I held your tool. I held it for quite some time when we were there at the trade show, messed around with it, you know, within the space you allowed us to. I didn't see any flaws. So that's why I scratched my head walking away, like, where the fuck, why isn't this coming out till September? But I'm glad it's now September. But like, Kurt, what's the main difference of your tools, if you can, and why is there a difference? Like, from the contractor's perspective, why would one person buy one and not the other? Or maybe they need both.
Right. So you got a lot there to respond to, Splash. But first of all, let me say this, that this is a measuring tool and it has to be accurate. And that's something that we have emphasized from the start. So when I'm in there on Corel Draw and I'm doing the lines, like, it's down to 0.000, right? We're getting very granular. And yes, we have found that some of the traditional squares that you find in a hardware store, they are wrong. They are off. Yep. In fact, the degree marks are off as well. That's what we discovered. And at first we thought, oh, wow, is ours incorrect? And after putting it under the microscope, no, actually these other ones are incorrect. So we're trying to make a good measuring tool, and we encourage anybody to measure their measurement tools when they get them. And if you have any problem with ours, just get in touch. We'll help you out. But we put ours through rigorous scrutiny. We're constantly testing the new batches that come out to make sure that they're as good as possible. We've talked to our manufacturers. We've gone to them and said, look, this is 0.5 millimeter off. Like, you need to fix this. And they look at us like, well, come on, this is just for, and we're like, no, this has to be totally accurate. So that's something we put a lot of emphasis on. And our two variants that you mentioned, right now we have one with level vials and one without. So that doesn't affect the markings at all. That's just in the center of the tool. And that's another thing about the square is we have a space, Dan showing the one without the level vials. We have a level and plumb bubble, which there's not a lot of squares that have that. Some just have the level bubble. But we have the two of those in the square if you want, or you can get them without. And, maybe we can touch on this later, but this is just our first idea for a new square, Splash. We already have many others being prototyped, and they're going to be awesome. So
how exciting was September 20th for you guys? I knew you guys had date. It was the 25th, but like, I mean, when I talked to you, Dan, at the trade show, when you talk to tool inventors the way I do, I read your body language. Without a doubt, you were probably one of, I think there were like 70 companies that were brand new. You were probably one of 5 that you knew your tool worked. So back to what Kurt was saying, like, you wanted to take the time. Now, as someone who's a tool whore, like, wait, give it to me. I want it now. Like, I want to use these. I want to do these. But I love that you guys have taken the initiative, because from just talking to you guys know you wanted it to be 100%. You didn't want the backlash. You didn't want the hey, this is wrong. So I ask this question of everyone that comes on: how many times until you knew this was the one? Like, how many molds? I mean, you and I know
prototypes.
There's a lot you probably had.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and actually, I think you nailed it perfectly, Splash. We got some great feedback. We met our first influencers at the hardware show, and I'm going to tell you something. These guys are they're good guys. They're the kind of people that'll walk up and say, "Hey, if I were you, I'd look at this," or "If I were you, I would consider that." And they were willing to look at it with an appreciative eye, but also a critical eye, because they understand. As Kurt mentioned before, accuracy is everything in a measuring tool, right? And by the way, we have a fence that's also laid out. Very, very few. There are a few, but very few squares out there actually lay out the fence and have it be a part of the measuring instrument. But we spent from February until basically the day before we rolled out refining every aspect of it that we could, for the very reasons you mentioned, Splash. We kind of wanted to get ahead of the curve, to make sure that somebody else's criticism is something we're going to notice now, and we're going to address it now if we possibly can. We've sent them out to some people and told them to put them under the rigors of work and give us their feedback. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us what you do like. More effective for us are the things that they don't like. And so those are the things that we would actually take to heart and say, okay, let's dig in. Let's see how we can address this.
Did you take
And our
it personal?
influencers have been very
Did
good.
you take it personal when the influencers would tell you things?
No, not a bit.
No.
Like I said, for these guys are great. They're fantastic, and you get to see their work on Instagram every day. These guys are high-end, high-quality builders, and they know what they're talking about. I believe our tool fits in that tier of quality. So when they give you feedback, you need to be all ears. And they've been very, very helpful. They've actually had quite an effect on how we've adjusted things in the square since we saw you at the hardware show, Splash.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm bringing back my tools of the year. I did it for 5 years and I stopped doing it. And in 2023, I'll be doing a tools of the year. I find 5 tools that are tools of the year, and you guys are definitely in the top 5 for me. And I not even touched your tool, because I think of, when I started doing the work as a content creator, I really found myself guided to you guys, meaning new tool inventors. And I want to, if I can, capitalize on what you said, Dan. I know I have a lot of tool inventors or people that want to create tools. You guys have to be open-minded. I don't care who you are, what tool you're going to create, or why you're creating it. Listen to your audience. It's so important, and I get that a lot from, I won't call anyone out, but there's a few tool creators I've worked with, and we still work together, and they call me well, dude, this person said this about it. I'm like, well, think about it. Think about why that person who's grinding every day wants to use your tool. If they find something wrong with it, just be open to listen. And it has to be hard.
Yeah.
People poo-poo on your shit all the time. Literally, they do. But you guys, both you and Kurt, I can tell you guys came in okay, we're going to capitalize on it, and we're going to make it work. So kudos to you guys, because I think that's brilliant that you did that. And you were smart. And I tell everyone, get people to use your product. Get people. Let them demolish it. Not, literally, but
Yes. Yes.
Because look at cars. Cars get test driven that you don't even know are out there, and they go through certain things just because. That's why there's testing. That's why there's OSHA, everyone's least favorite word. There's why there's all these things. Who came up with the color scheme?
Well, and just to complete something that you said there, Splash. So we live in the Instagram era, and we're both consumers. So we know that when we want to learn about something, we don't go to a company's website, right? That's just PR. You go and see what all these people are, how they're putting it to the test. And so we knew that that's the world we live in. We know that 1,000 people are going to be dropping our square on their Instagram channels, and everybody's going to see it. So we did that first, right? So we kind of embrace the transparency, and that's why we're on Instagram several times a week, just testing and showing you how this works, because we know that's what people expect and that's what they're going to do. So we don't hide from that. We're pretty transparent in terms of the colors, and by the way, we haven't gotten to another fundamental part of the tool, which is the jig block. We can actually turn the square into its own jig. But what we wanted to do was we wanted to have a product that's changing things. In this case, you can do accurate flat work. You can use the jig block to do repetitive cuts, which is pretty awesome. And we have the level vials as well. but we also, and we're learning new things that it does in the flat position. A lot of people who work on flooring and things of this sort, they're putting it to all kinds of good use that we didn't even realize. In terms of the colors, we didn't just want to create a kind of revolutionary tool. We wanted to do things new from the start. So as we're looking back at the history of squares that go back the modern square 100 years, 1925, we said, okay, well, we're changing a fundamental thing about the fence, right? We're adding a jig block to it. Why don't we change other things? So we went and we looked at the markings, and we did some kind of design changes on the markings, because why have they been doing it this way? Let's perfect it, right? The colors were another big thing. Why are there no squares that are gold? We made one. Why are there no squares that are green? People love green. People are buying green like crazy. People love green. We made 2 different versions of green. So there's no reason why we can't have as many colors as we want to appeal to people's, personality. People identify with their tools. They want to go out and be awesome, right? Feel like that awesome guy with this unique thing.
Yeah.
And so we're doing that. So we have unique colors. We're coming out with more. We're going to go pick up an orange batch from Anodizing after we hang up on this podcast. So we're just trying every color that works, and we're seeing what people want on Instagram, and we just do it because we can.
I love it. As a football fan, NFL, make me some NFL colors. I need a silver and black for my Raiders. But I do think
we're experimenting with dual colors actually. There.
And I want to say this, Dan and Kurt, with 1,000% respect. So let me just say this, because I get this. I'm 44. I know, Dan, you're a little older than I am, but there is not an age that you can't be on social media. I am tired of people telling me, I have teenagers. Their friends like, dude, isn't your dad too old to be on TikTok? I'm like, shut up. I'm not. But I'm and Kurt and Dan. Well, I at least for Dan, I can say this comfortably. So same with you, Kurt. You have to be in the new space. If you're not, you're not. One of my children's not on social media, and I know parents are going to frown. So send me the emails, everyone. I'm okay with it. My kids have been on social media for a long time. You have to understand my perspective as a parent. I've been on social media for years. Before you could even go live, I was doing videos. I was testing products. I am just in the mindset, 1, I don't buy my followers. 2, I don't touch anything unless I know I have trust and faith in the product and it's going to change for good in the space of where we're at. And 3, I'm going to stay up to date on everything. So my kids have always been on social media. I can't tell them, hey, don't do this, but I'm doing this. And I get a lot of parents that are like, well, my one son that's not, I finally got him on Instagram. Like, look, you have to be on this. This is your generation. Discmans and Walkmans were my generation. Yeah. AirPods. I mean, look at this thing. This thing's a fossil. But when this came out, this wasn't a fossil. This is an original scroll iPod. And it's loaded with music. But still, now we have this. So you guys have done basically what Apple and everyone else is doing, saying, hey, there's a product out there. We use it. We like it. But I'm going to make it just this much better. And like Kurt was saying, I don't block. I don't know the word you said, Kurt. But I don't cut like that. But that's cool. Maybe I'll get into it. Maybe whoever buys that will be like, oh, what's this feature? Let me go buy this new tool. And I'll start doing this kind of woodwork. It opens up Pandora's box for what you have the capability of doing.
Yeah. So the three major changes, we have the pivoting fence, right? We have the plumb and level vials in there. Of course, this is it's a high-end square in its functioning, but we also have the jig block, which Dan is now showing in the video. And in the middle of the square, you have 2 lines. You have 2 slots, and they can each accommodate a long rectangular block that comes with the square. And with the thumb screw that we include, you can attach the block underneath the square, you can tighten it, and you can use it to mark your rafter cuts, your plumb cuts, whatever kind of cuts or marks that you want to do. You're on mute, by the way, Dan. You can do those. And go ahead, Dan, say a little bit more about that.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Swanson came up with a great name. They came up with the name Speed Square. And that belongs to Swanson. I tip my cap to them. I use Swanson's for years. I have a bunch of them, and it's a great tool. But what the thing about that name, Speed Square, everything in commercial framing is fast paced. Even in the custom end, the faster you go, the more of the better off you do. So everything's designed for speed. So is our tool. It's a fast tool, that easy to read markings, the level and plumb vials. Hopefully you can leave your torpedo level in the truck. But this guy right here, this is part of what I saw when the idea came to me from above. We call it a jig block. We have 2 slots, and for speed, think about it. I like the painters. Don't get me wrong, Splash, but I got to tip my cap to carpenters. I think carpenters are the finest craftsmen on the job site, because they have to know about every other subcontractor's job to some degree. They have to know about everybody else, and not everybody else has to know about the framer, but the framer kind of is responsible for being the quarterback, in my opinion. Okay, so everything is a smart framer, a smart carpenter is always trying to do things faster. The jig block, carpentry is known for repetitive marking, for repetitive cutting. So the first thing a carpenter will do when they know they have to make a repetitive mark, they'll make a jig. They'll grab 2 blocks of wood, they'll cut one, and then they'll shoot the other one to the top of that piece, and they'll carry it up and down the ladder 100 times until they mark their tails or their rafters or whatever. And this block comes with the square. It can ride in your bags. It's got a thumb screw, and you can actually make your square into the jig you need. So you figure out if it's a bird's mouth, if it's a pitch cut, if it's a rafter cut, if it's a hip cut, you can find whatever that's going to be, set your jig block to it. It's firm, it's strong. Mark every piece of material you have to do, keep it in your bags the entire time. And for that application, this is the perfect jig. And then take off the jig block, put the jig block back in your bags, and go back to framing.
So when you need to get jiggy with it, you can get jiggy with it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Somewhere.
yeah. That's kind of that's what I'm trying to say. So
when I met you in Vegas, one thing that stuck out to me, you said, "Hey, our product's made in America."
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say that, but the importance for you is why. What's the why behind it?
So there's various parts to it, right, Splash? And we have made in America prominently on there. That's actually a regulated term. It means that the vast majority of the contribution to building that tool was done in the U.S., which applies to us. But of course, there's a quality statement about that, right? Everybody knows that if something's made in the U.S., there's a better chance that it's simply a more durable tool. And that's certainly the case with ours. We're using extruded T6 6061 aluminum. That is really high class aluminum that's used in the aerospace industry. A lot of people make fun of us. We say, oh, it's aerospace aluminum. Well, it actually is. And that's not every aluminum, I assure you of that. So there's a quality aspect to it, Splash. And there's also the patriotic aspect of it, right? That when you buy a tool, you can be sure, for example, when you buy a Smart Square tool, that you are not just supporting us, but you're supporting the people who we buy the products from, right? Our pins, we have pins in there. Those come from our friends at Sperry Automatics. They're in Connecticut, right? So when you buy a Smart Square tool, you are supporting that employee at Sperry Automatics being able to take his daughter to volleyball practice and buy her some new equipment, right? So all of this stuff pertaining to the tool, all of the contribution to it is going to stay within America, right? So you have the patriotic aspect, you have the quality aspect, and just kind of in much bigger picture terms, we have had this globalized marketplace, which has driven down a lot of prices as they've gone offshore. And I think we're realizing, and this is what we say now, that as a society, we think that we cannot afford cheap things anymore. And so our square costs some money. It's never going to be, that $10 square that you might buy somewhere. It's going to be more than that, but it's sure as heck higher quality than most of the stuff you'll buy out there. and you know that all that money is staying within this country.
And I love that. I love that a lot. I think that if I recall, I dove into this one time. I think 70%, I could be wrong, but I want to say 70% of the tool to have that made in the US, 70% of the organicness of the product has to be made here. Like 30% seems too big, but there's a small percentage that can be done out there. And you're right. When people buy products, my son, his scooter just died, and he's like, Dad, I need another scooter. Use it every day. And I'm like, Bud, when you buy things, prepare that they're going to break. Like, that's just life.
Yeah.
But if you spend good quality money on it the first time, it's not going to break as frequently. I have a few questions. I know you guys got to run, but I have some questions real quick. But first, Let's go over a few things. One, your website, smartsquaretools.com. It's on the product itself, which is brilliant. So when someone's like, hey, I want one, like, go get one. Right now, your guys' are priced at, there's one that's, I'm going to give the regular price and the sell price. Right now, one's $95, but it's on sale for $80. There's another one that's $63. That's called the Scratch and Dent. And then you have the $85 one that's $68. So you're under $100 on these. My one question, though, that follows suit with this is, are you going to make a bigger size square for volume 2? Like, is there a purpose for those people that use these every day? Is there a smaller version coming? Is there a bigger version coming? And then why is that? What's the why behind that, Kurt?
So Dan just stepped away to grab the prototype of our bigger version. I'll let him take it away. But yes, we have a big one coming. We have a small one coming. This is just the beginning.
But what's the reason, as a contractor? Like, I'm very novice at this. Like I said, I'm not afraid to put myself under the bus. I don't know everything about blue collar. I just know how to work my ass off. But as someone who's in the space of the contractor who uses these, for those people that don't know why do you need 3 different sizes of squares or whatever the amount could be?
Okay, I think I can answer that for you in just about a minute and a half here, Splash. Here's the 12-inch version. This is called the Smart Square Pro. It has the pivoting fence. It has all of the bells and whistles of Smart Square, and but the thing is, this is big enough that you can accurately lay out a set of stairs with it. It's got the, you can do the geometry on a set of stairs. It's simple geometry. It's rise over run. So you figure out what your total rise is going to be. You divide it by a certain number. And anyway, I won't go into all those details, but the typical framing square, if you remember the big L-shaped square, every grandfather's got one. I've got them. Every father's got one that's been around wood. They're great squares. I will never knock them, but this does the same thing. When you attach a jig block, you can set it to your rise and run, and you can lay out a beautiful set of stairs with this. Highly accurate, repetitive markings that are just guaranteed to be spot on. So the bigger square, to answer your question, the 12-inch square, this is great for laying out. A lot of people lay out their plates across the face of the plate. So you can put two 2x6 plates beside each other. That's 11 inches. This will more than span that. And when you're doing that type of layout, or timber framing, we also have one with a 4-inch extension, and it's called Bigfoot. It's going to be for timber framers. We have some of the larger ones for the metal industry. The metal industry loves this concept of being able to lay it flat, and the pencil notches, or in their case, the soapstone notches for marking metal. They love that. But the size of the square, to go bigger, you can do bigger things like timber framing, stairs, etc. But you also asked about going smaller. So we have a Smart Square Mini coming out. It's going to be a 4.5-inch version. And we're going to kind of dedicate that to the cabinet makers, to the trim carpenters. I'll tell you what, I'm a framer. I'm extremely proud of my profession. I love a well-framed home. I think it looks beautiful. But honestly, those trim carpenters, those painters, those guys like that, they turn the house into a home, so to speak. And they need a higher degree of accuracy. So our smaller one, our Smart Square Mini, is going to be a 4.5-inch, very tight. We're going to go down to the 16th of an inch in our measurement. We're going to have pencil notches for the distances or the measurements that cabinet makers use repetitively, and make it do the same exact thing. If the cabinet maker needs it to go flat, needs to put it into the corner of a cabinet, they can, with a flip of the fence, they can do that with the Smart Square Mini. So
Nice. Kurt, anything you want to add as the backside guy?
Sure. You mentioned before the price, and we have, with this square, used the highest quality materials that we can. They are laser etched with the finest American laser that we could get our hands on, and we are under $100, as you said. We're always trying to get it cheaper, but for us, we made the highest quality tool that we can, and we put it for the price it's at, and we feel pretty good about that. Anyway, I was going off on a different tangent on that, but I will say that we do have a discount code, by the way, for the listeners here. If you go to smartsquaretools.com and use the discount code SPLASH, SPLASH, you can get 10% off your order. And so, we got a few more minutes here, Splash, if you got more questions, but that's kind of where we're
I
at.
appreciate it. And I'll tell you this, if you're listening to this and you are in the trades, I mean, I've used my square, now that I know what it's called, a million times for different things. Should never tell that story, but
you do.
It's the truth of the matter, though. But like, you don't use it. Like I said, I agree with you. Carpentry work. For me, it's more fine carpentry. Like, the framing is great, but like, I love crown molding. It's one of my most favorite things to do. It just takes a room and brings elegance and cleanliness to it. You can completely change the space of, like, the size of a room with crown molding. I mean, that's how we did hundreds of homes with crown molding. Like, no, that's so 1980s. Like, no, let me put this up. Trust me. When it's done, you're going to change. When you're adding you take existing cabinets and you add, now, those that follow me know that I don't know all the proper language. I literally make up shit in my mind that sounds like the right word. But when you add that crown to the top of a cabinetry, because a lot of the times as a painter, we're like, hey, I don't like the cabinets. I don't like the looks. Like, okay, well, we can build some boxes up there. We can add some finish. But like, those are things that Smart Square comes in size. And that's why I asked you about the smaller version, because I love my smaller version. Like, it literally was in my truck next to my cigars and my tape measure. Like, I'm a cigar guy. So my truck, I'd have cigars, my tape measure, my square, and like 2 Sharpies, a yellow one and a black one, to mark everything. And I was very adamant with my crew, like, don't touch those. Those are like mine. I need them for everything. They're mine. Leave them there. And Kurt, to get on your price point, I feel it's a little under the value because I've seen your tools live. I know what they're capable of doing. So, one, you're at a great spot, and also, your tool sells itself just on the color. Like, literally, you think about the color of your product when they're on shelves, when you get to that place, if that's where you're at, you're going to. But right now, I mean, I've seen probably about 15 Instagrammers, maybe a little less, TikTokers, Instagrammers, use your products, talk about them, not really use them, but like show them. I'm excited to start seeing these in videos, because what you guys did, Kurt and Dan, is you took a tool that everybody has, and now in these videos, and you guys know, I know you know this, Dan, but like, you're going to start to see these cats just in the background. Hey, that's my square. People are going to start asking in videos, hey, what's that square? You know, some painters painting a wall and there's a bright orange one laying on the ground. Like, yo, bro, that's a great wall, but what's the square? I mean, I read comments and I'm looking at that. Like, I tell everyone this for what I do right now. If you're on social media, your job is to create a conversation. And boy, did you guys fucking hit a home run. Congrats.
Thank you.
I'm excited.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see what you guys have. Are you guys having any trade shows locally? Or are you guys kind of done with that right now? Are you going to be in Vegas again? What are your plans?
So right now, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we are a totally online business, and that's how you can find us, just from our website. We'll ship these to you same day, next day, and that's how we intend to remain for a while. We might try to get on some store shelves or something in the future. We do intend to be at some of these Las Vegas shows in February, March. We're going to try to get to as many of those as we can. IBS, NHS, maybe one other. That's kind of what we're aiming for. Otherwise, we've got to wake up every morning and ship these out Monday through Saturday, and coming in on Sunday sometimes. So we literally don't have time to do anything else. But yeah, just on your point about the color there, Splash. So I think of a company like Tesla, where not only were they creating an awesome new kind of experience, right, an electric vehicle, but they also had some pretty killer designs as well. And we knew that if we are going back to the blank slate, right, and starting over with the Raptor Square, why not do things differently? There's no reason why you have to have just boring black and red and primary colors. We can create most any color we want, and we want people to be on the job site and say, hey, I've never seen a green square before. Where did you get that? I've never seen a golden square. A golden square, does that even exist? And so we went for style and substance. And I'll tell you what, we've seen some of the other high-end squares got some ideas from us. We'll just say that.
Yeah, no, I know who you're talking about. I've seen them, but I will say this: if you guys make a tie-dye one, I want one. Tie-dye. Think about it.
Okay,
the hippie and me.
That's kind of tough with anodized, but
I know
that's kind of tough with anodized.
I've actually seen dudes do it on rims. I've seen them do it's
Really?
almost like a water. It's like a watercolor almost. It looks like that's cool. But that's just the hippie in me, guys. It's been a pleasure. I could talk to you for hours. I'd love to have you guys on again, especially when Volume 2 comes out. Okay. Let's bring you on. But this platform is for you guys. If you guys got questions, and also I know that there's users out there that are going to buy your tool. They're more than welcome to come on the show. This podcast was made for the blue collar workers. This podcast was made for people to come and vent, talk shit, and celebrate why they're so, not to fudge any words here, but why you fucking love this. I just spoke last week to painters in Utah here, and I told them I miss the everyday work. I have work in my house that I do, but I retired for a reason. I'm doing social media. I'm doing other content creations. A lot of it's behind the scenes because, I made really good money and I loved what I did. And I love sharing these opportunities and experiences. So as you guys continue to grow, just know, Kurt, Dan, whether it's both of you or singly, you're more than welcome to come on here. I'm excited to get mine in the mail. Let's get that website out one more time if we can. smartsquaretools.com. You can use my code SPLASH, get 10% off. They're going to know that you went there. And honestly, guys, I love it. I absolutely love what you've changed. I think that, Dan, I would just one suggestion to you. Make some educational videos on how to read a square, because I need that.
Okay.
I will. This is just for Splash, guys. Just keep moving on. He's the only one that needs this. Because honestly,
you're not the only one.
All bullshit aside,
No,
it does take a little bit of time to read a square, to understand even the basics. The basics. It's hard.
Yeah. That's an excellent idea, actually. And once again, whoever came up with the very first one, they did a phenomenal job. We didn't reinvent this. We didn't reinvent the how a square is utilized necessarily, but so we tip our cap to the predecessors that did all the math.
It's like I said earlier. If you guys are watching on TV, look, I have the original iPod and the brand new cell phone. Okay, so think about it this way: you had the original squares, the iPod had a wheel that circled. I don't have anything on my new phone that I touch. All you did was take a tool and said, hey, we're going to make it better. Here's how we're going to do it. And you guys have added great colors. You guys have amazing personalities. Y'all, if you guys go see these guys at shows, give them a high five, pick up their products. And guys, I'm excited to sit back. I mean, I'm going to work with the tool and show what I can do with it. I know a lot of cats out there going to do a lot better work than me, but hey, it's been a pleasure having you guys on. I've been waiting for quite some time, and congratulations on getting your product out there. And I'm excited to see what the next 3 years has. So,
well, appreciate it,
Splash.
Thank you. And
thank
just
you.
just to sum it up, smartsquaretools.com. We're also on Instagram, Smart Square Tools, and we're a totally transparent company. We're out there risking our lives, literally climbing up on roofs to drop these things off to test their durability. So we pride ourselves on customer service. If you have any problems, you let us know. We'll take care of you. We're not faceless suits or something like that. We're real people. This is a family-run company. made in America. We have strict principles. We hold ourselves to a high standard, and this square does everything your old square can do, and it has some other nice tricks up its sleeve. And we have some awesome colors, and it's just a durable product. It is a nice thing to hold. I just got a message from a guy who's in NASCAR. Actually, we sent him a few, and his message just this morning was, "These are nice." Right. So people like the machining just at a basic level. Come give us a look. Come give us a try. You're supporting a good company. And just come see what we're about. You'll see all kinds of videos about what this square can do. SmartSquareTools.com.
Now, I know a lot of influencers are going to ask this question. Are you guys going to sell your T-shirts? Because, Dan, I like your shirt. I know you're wearing them at the trade show.
You like that shirt? Oh, yeah.
I actually do.
Okay.
Like, this, but like contractors, we're weird. We like to wear shirts of companies' tools that we use. Hence, I gave one of my friends shit. He was wearing a DeWalt shirt and I'm like, bro, like, get that off. Like, yeah, see, that's awesome. And it's just marketing. So I love it. I think you guys should sell. And shirts are going to be a little different because I know how shirt pricing goes, but you can add the different colors. But I'm telling you, volume 2, NFL colors. And then you can move to baseball colors. And you're saying NASCAR. You can do NASCAR colors. You have all these things you can do.
I hear you. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, because we have two separate parts of this tool, we have the fence and the triangle. We can do different color combinations. In fact, Dan was showing earlier in the show, he was holding up a patriotic one, right? The red and blue one. So we can make all kinds of combinations. We intend to sell people. We'll get some of the older guys who just come up at the show and they say, "I just want black," right? Yeah. But for everybody else who wants a little bit of personality, we're gonna
like that black and silver because I'm a Raiders fan. Like I dig that.
Here you go.
Yeah. See,
I'll tell you what, I can swap the black fence to the gray body and vice versa, and you'd have a Raiders
See,
set.
I love it. And then my kids would know not to touch it. If it's black and silver, they don't touch it.
They don't touch it. Touch it. I got you.
Well, hey guys, it has been an amazing pleasure. Like I said, I can't echo it enough. One of the tools of the year. We'll definitely get you out there. I love it. And I know all the other Instagrammers and TikTokers, they're excited. I'm in some groups that I see the conversations. We're having the conversations of tools, and yours has been one since January, February, since I saw you in Vegas. Is like, hey,
thank you.
What's this going to do? So from the quiet ones in the back of the room, that's me and my friends. We've been watching. We're excited. But hey, if you need a tool, good Christmas present for if you're listening and your husband or spouse, wife is in the trades, smartsquaretools.com. Go visit them. And who knows, maybe one day we'll do some giveaways and you'll see them around. I love you guys. You guys are an amazing product. You're changing the way that the blue collar world needs to change. And just know, I'll end it like this, like I end a lot of my shows. 2 things. 1, robots aren't ever going to take our jobs. So forget the stupid videos you're seeing, robots. And lastly, as blue-collar workers, before we end, remember, you make the world turn. If you're a blue-collar badass like me, you're out getting your coffee, getting a drink at the store. Say hi to the little kids. Say hi to the husbands and wives that are getting coffee. Yes. Buy someone a drink. If we can acknowledge somebody every day, we can change their life. And they're watching us because they want to know what trade we're in. And I'm telling you right now, I get emotional every time I say this, but I bring it back to this. We're people walking this day every day, and some days we're just lonely. But if you just acknowledge another human being by something about them, they will smile and they'll remember that you thought and saw them as a human being. And that is who we are, blue-collar men and women. We are the ones that change the world. It's not the white-collar people. They do a lot of great things. My wife's white-collar. But we make the world look pretty, and we're the ones that are moving every day in this space. So be a good human being out there. So...
Well done. Awesome. Well spoken, sir. Well spoken.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate you, Splash.
Thank you.
We'll see you.